When my brother announced baby number 5, my parents cheered. Dad beamed, clapping him on the back. "Great job, son." Then Mom slowly turned her head, her eyes locking onto mine with a cold, unsettling certainty. "You'll handle the kids, Sophia," she stated, not asking, but deciding. I looked around the room, stunned, and said, "Absolutely not." That's when my sister-in-law snapped, her voice dripping with venom. "You have no family, Sophia. This is your training. You should be grateful." I didn't argue, I didn't yell. I just picked up my purse and walked out without another word. They thought they could bully me into submission, but they completely miscalculated. The next morning, my phone rang at 6 a.m. When I answered, a heavy voice on the other end said, "Hello, ma'am. This is Officer Daniels. Someone has..." Follow my story until the end to find out what happened. My name is Sophia. I am 27 years old, and up until that fateful dinner, I thought I had finally built a life entirely on my own terms. As a freelance graphic designer, I spent years working 80-hour weeks, sacrificing sleep and a social life to achieve my ultimate dream, buying my own condo downtown. I valued my peace, my quiet, and the independence I had fought so hard to secure. Unfortunately, my family operated on a completely different frequency. In our household, my older brother Tyler and his wife Amanda were treated like absolute royalty. Despite being chronically broke, drowning in credit card debt, and constantly complaining about how overwhelmed they were by their 4 chaotic children, they could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. The bomb dropped during a mandatory family Sunday dinner. Between passes of the pot roast, Tyler stood up, cleared his throat, and proudly announced that Amanda was pregnant with baby number 5. My parents erupted in pure joy, acting as if he had just won a Nobel Prize rather than adding another financial burden to their collapsing household. But the celebration quickly turned predatory. Mom looked across the table, her eyes narrowing as she casually volunteered me to become their full-time, unpaid live-in caregiver. When I flatly refused, Amanda's smug smile instantly warped into a snarl. She hissed that since I was single and had no real family, this would be good training for me. Sickened by their staggering entitlement, I walked out into the night, completely unaware of the trap they were already setting. "Hello, ma'am. This is Officer Daniels. Someone has filed an emergency report against you." The heavy, professional tone of the policeman shattered my early morning peace, sending a jolt of pure adrenaline straight through my chest. I sat upright in bed, my heart hammering against my ribs as I tried to process his words. For a terrifying second, I thought something horrific had happened to my nieces and nephews. But as Officer Daniels continued speaking, my shock quickly curdled into absolute disbelief. My own parents and my brother Tyler hadn't called the police because of a tragedy. They had filed a formal complaint accusing me of child abandonment and breaking into Tyler's home. The sheer absurdity of the accusation left me breathless, but the reality of what had actually transpired during the night was infinitely worse. While I had been fast asleep with my noise-canceling earplugs in, my mother had driven over to my condo. Using an old spare key she was never supposed to keep, she had quietly opened my front door and literally dropped off all 4 of Tyler's exhausted, crying children directly onto my living room rug. She left a note on the counter stating they would see me in a few months, fully assuming my maternal instincts would kick in and force me to submit to their demands. When the kids eventually panicked, walked back outside, and called Tyler, my furious family decided to weaponize the law to punish me for sleeping through their ambush. Once I explained the situation and showed Officer Daniels my security camera footage, proving I was fast asleep while my mother trespassed, the officer's tone completely shifted. He realized my family was attempting to weaponize the police over a toxic domestic dispute. After sternly warning Tyler and my parents over the phone about the severe legal consequences of filing false police reports, the officer hung up, leaving me shaken but furious. But my family wasn't done. Barely an hour later, my phone lit up with angry texts, followed by a frantic buzzing from my lobby intercom. My parents and Tyler had bypassed building security by tailgating another resident, cornering me the moment I stepped into the lobby to get my morning coffee. Instead of apologizing for abandoning 4 children on a dark porch or lying to the police, my mother marched up to me and slammed a folder onto the lobby reception desk. Inside was a typed multi-page document labeled Family Care Contract. Tyler stepped forward, his face twisted in smug entitlement, and laid out their terms. The contract demanded that I immediately pause my freelance graphic design business, move into their house, and become their full-time, unpaid nanny for the next year. If I refused to sign it right then and there, my father coldly added that they would legally contest my late grandmother's upcoming estate distribution, ensuring I was completely stripped of my rightful inheritance. Refusing to let their hollow blackmail break me, I walked away from their trap in the lobby and immediately called Mr. Vance, my late grandmother's estate attorney. He had been a trusted family friend for decades, the only person left in our circle who valued integrity over my brother's endless demands. I needed to know the absolute truth. Could my parents and Tyler actually hijack my inheritance, or were they just playing a desperate game of psychological warfare? When I explained the family care contract and their threats to strip away my share of the estate, the line went entirely dead for a few long, agonizing seconds. Then, Mr. Vance let out a heavy, deeply troubled sigh that sent a chill straight down my spine. What he revealed next completely shattered my remaining illusions about my family. He explained that my grandmother hadn't left a traditional inheritance split evenly among us. Instead, she had established a massive educational trust fund worth several $1 million, specifically designated for her great-grandchildren, Tyler's kids. However, the strict legal terms of the trust stipulated that the funds could only be unlocked, managed, and distributed by a designated trustee who was actively providing full-time, documented daily care for the children. The pieces of their sick puzzle instantly clicked into place. Tyler and Amanda didn't want me to care for their children out of love, family unity, or because I had no family of my own. They were drowning in debt, and they desperately needed my signature on that caregiving contract to exploit a legal loophole, giving them direct access to Grandma's millions to fund their own lavish lifestyle. Armed with the devastating truth about my grandmother's millions, a cold, sharp clarity replaced my fear. I wasn't going to hide, and I wasn't going to scream. Instead, I decided to play their game, but by my rules. I pulled out my phone and sent a carefully worded text message to Tyler and Amanda, stating that after doing some deep soul-searching, I realized family really did come first, and I was finally ready to discuss the caregiving arrangement. To make it official, I suggested we all meet for a formal dinner at my parents' house the following evening. The response from Amanda was almost instantaneous, filled with fake heart emojis and gushing expressions of gratitude. They fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. The atmosphere inside my parents' dining room the next night was suffocatingly smug. They genuinely believed they had successfully broken my independent spirit and bullied me into absolute submission. Amanda sat at the table with a radiant, triumphant grin, openly flipping through luxury vacation brochures and showing my mother photos of a sprawling, high-end mansion in a gated community. In her mind, she had already unlocked Grandma's trust fund and was spending the stolen millions before the 5th baby was even born. I quietly watched the display, matching their fake smiles with an icy calm of my own. When dinner ended, the room went quiet as I pulled a thick, heavy manila folder from my bag and laid it flat on the table. They all leaned forward eagerly, fully expecting to see my signature on their twisted caregiving contract. What they didn't know was that the documents inside were about to completely destroy their lives. The smug smiles vanished the instant Tyler opened the folder and stared at the first page. Instead of a signed caregiving contract, he was looking at an official forensic accounting report. Over the past 24 hours, Mr. Vance had worked tirelessly to unearth what my family had been doing behind closed doors while my grandmother was fading away in the hospital. I leaned forward, my voice cutting through the sudden, suffocating silence of the room. I revealed that I knew everything, including the fact that Tyler and my parents had already illegally forged our grandmother's signature on early trust withdrawal applications months ago, attempting to siphon off funds before she even passed away. Amanda's face turned an ashen white as the luxury vacation brochures slipped from her trembling fingers. My father tried to bluster, standing up and shouting that this was family business and I had no right to pry, but I calmly slid a second set of documents across the polished mahogany table. This was a legally binding, ironclad release form drawn up by Mr. Vance. I delivered my final, non-negotiable ultimatum. Tyler and Amanda had exactly 5 minutes to sign away all of their claims to being trustees of the educational fund, permanently transferring absolute control over to an independent corporate executor who would protect the millions for the kids until they turned 18. If they refused to sign, Mr. Vance had instructions to immediately forward the undeniable evidence of their grand larceny, wire fraud, and forgery straight to the district attorney's office. Faced with the immediate reality of significant prison time, their arrogance completely collapsed into pathetic, terrified compliance. With trembling hands and tears of silent fury streaming down Amanda's face, my brother signed the release forms. My parents sat completely frozen, staring at the floor, utterly defeated by the realization that their elaborate plan to exploit me and steal from their own grandchildren had blown up in their faces. Their toxic greed had earned them absolutely nothing. They were left with zero access to my grandmother's millions, stuck facing their mountain of existing credit card debts, and forced to figure out how to raise a fifth child without a single dime of stolen trust money to fund their lavish lifestyle. The corporate executor took over the trust the next morning, ensuring every dollar was legally protected for the children's actual education and future well-being. As for me, I changed the locks on my condo, blocked their phone numbers, and cut ties with all of them completely. For the past few months, I have finally enjoyed the uninterrupted peace, quiet, and thriving freelance design career that I worked so hard to build entirely on my own terms. What would you have done if your own family tried to trap you like this? Would you have signed the caregiving papers, or would you have fought back to protect yourself and the children's future? Comment the city you are watching from below, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And meanwhile, I'm leaving on the final screen 2 other stories that are channel favorites, and they will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching until the very end.